often you must have come across this particular joke that's forwarded in WhatsApp, which talks about how unskilled or semi-skilled laborers make more money than BTech graduates in our country. You must have also read reports about the unemployability issue among BTech graduates, that only 17% are employable. You might have also witnessed that there is a mad rush towards other degree programs and not towards BTech, so that students at the end of 3 years, can pursue some government-related entrance examinations. Now, what's the truth behind this joke? And what's the reality behind these facts? We'll examine them towards the end of this video. But first, congratulations on having cleared your 12th standard examination, having completed your school education. And now the time has come to pursue college education, to make the choices and then have more self-directed, semi-independent learning in your life towards a career. And here, I am Dr. Arun Surendran, Principal and Strategic Director of Trinity College of Engineering in Trivandrum. I received my BTech from Indian Institute of Technology, Mumbai back in year 2000, and then I pursued my Master's and PhD at the Texas A&M University. Currently, I'm happy to be at the Trinity College campus, which was established by the visionary leadership of Dr. Thomas Alexander, so that students who come to do BTech are closely aligned with the industry, and they get to see hands-on what goes on in the industry through the faculty-run companies on campus. So I am talking to you not just from the perspective of an educator and an engineer, but also as an entrepreneur who has engineering companies which are run on this particular campus. So with that introduction, let's dive right in to the scope, excitement, and potential of engineering education. If you look at the list of branches that the IITs have for pursuing your BTech degree, they are almost close to 90, including the different specializations. So without considering about all these 90 branches, let's think about those 4 branches which are considered to be core engineering or evergreen branches. We'll take a look at them one by one. They are evergreen because their potential never fades. They are evergreen because they keep for you the options open for pursuing higher studies in different areas to specialize later. Consider it something like doing biomath in your +2, so that you can either turn into a medical profession or look towards engineering profession. Now let's take a look at one by one these core evergreen branches. Okay, so let's begin the discussion of the core engineering or evergreen branches. We'll start with mechanical engineering, and I'm standing here in the production engineering lab. Now, most of us might think of engineering, the first thing that comes to our mind is building a house. That's civil engineering. And civil engineering is called civil engineering because engineering began as a military science to design weapons and construction of tools and machines right from the beginning. And that engineering branch has gone on to become mechanical engineering. Mechanical engineers also study subjects like fluid mechanics. They study automobile engineering, that comes as a part of it, material sciences, heating, ventilation, because thermal energy and its transfer are also part of mechanical engineering. So you can branch off into a wide range of subjects once you take the core engineering branch of mechanical engineering. Now, for decades in India, and especially in Kerala, mechanical engineering was considered to be a branch that was suited only for boys. Very rarely women used to enroll in mechanical engineering. Gladly that has changed, and even in Trinity College, our college, the percentage of girls who are enrolled in mechanical engineering has been steadily going up, because mechanical engineering these days is more about design and analysis of stuff around us, of machines, of building and things like that. So there lies the core engineering branch of mechanical engineering, which offers to you immense possibilities in studying about how the world operates in terms of machines. The second core engineering and evergreen branch we want to discuss is civil engineering. Of course, it's the most visible of the branches, since you see construction and building all around, especially as we are a fast developing nation. Right behind me, you will see an example of good construction going on here at Trinity College campus itself. You see, we wanted to expand our ground and put in an international artificial turf, and therefore land had to be filled, and a retaining wall construction is going on there by the workers in yellow uniform of Adrak, India. Now, civil engineering is not entirely about building plants, constructing them, or having building information management system, which is the latest technology, which allows you to program and plan the entire construction even before the first brick is laid. We also have large-scale transportation, geotechnical engineering, changing landscapes themselves, and even using satellites for geospatial information system. So it's an exciting branch that involves really changing on a large scale the living spaces, including the interior spaces that we will occupy for living and working. After mechanical and civil engineering, we now come to the third core or evergreen branch, electrical engineering. I'm standing here at the electrical machines lab. Now, all kinds of machines that you might have heard of should be electrical. It's not just about the production and distribution of electricity, in which our nation needs to go much farther forward. Therefore, there is a dire need of highly qualified electrical engineers. More than that, these days, you must have heard of Tesla, the car company. Electric vehicles are to be the next trend in all the nations around the world. Electric vehicles need battery, so battery technology, induction motors, after which Nikola Tesla invented the induction motors, and that's why the company has the name. Then all kinds of renewable energy, so that if saving the planet is a priority for you, then electrical engineering is something that you need to consider. Again, in several foreign countries, in older universities, we'll see that electronics comes under this branch of electrical engineering, and computer science comes under the electronics branch. So that's why in some cases we'll only discuss 3 core evergreen branches, and it ends with electrical engineering. Here, under the APJ Abdul Kalam Technological University in Kerala, there are 2 distinct branches. One is electrical and electronics engineering, and the other one is electronics and communication engineering. So if you are somebody who is interested in energy and want to do research on production of energy through various means, renewable, non-renewable, also keenly interested in working for the public sector or private sector firms that are involved in the distribution of electricity for the benefit of entire humanity, then this is the branch that you need to consider. Unfortunately, there is a lot of misconceptions these days about people that this is a tough branch, there is a lot of mathematics. All that is very unfair and unjustified. And please keep in mind that for any civil engineering project or mechanical engineering project, you do need motors and power. So you do need the service of an electrical engineer if it is any project that needs energy. And therefore, electrical engineering is the branch that energizes the world, and probably the world of the future. This will be the branch that will move the world using electric vehicles. Right behind me is a PCB printing machine. Printed circuit boards, kind of like these ones, you might be familiar. And even more complicated ones are present in this camera that is being used to shoot me, and the mobile or the computer that you are using to watch this video. Now, this PCBs brings us to the last and the latest entrant among the core engineering branches, the new evergreen branch of electronics. Actually, in several universities, computer science is considered a subsidiary of electronics, because hardware engineering, hardware configuration is equally important as software engineering, which is what mostly in India we understand by computer science. Now, electronics has changed the way we live, especially in the last 30-40 years. Electronic equipments are everywhere, and as you might know, we have entered the 4th industrial revolution. The first one was powered by steam, the second by electricity, petrol came then, and now with renewable energy, we are looking at a world of big data. And this big data is being collected by Internet of Things. All the devices around us are being connected, and this connectivity and communication, including the social media with which you must be so familiar, are all product of electronics. So once you enter this exciting branch, you will not only be looking at a worldwide possibility of career, but also to invent and innovate previously done engineering with added information technology or electronics. That's the excitement and scope. From robotics to space technology, everything has been influenced by the power of electronics and communication. Now that we have seen the 4 core or evergreen branches, let's think a little bit about the other 80 odd branches that are available in the IITs for specialization, even at the bachelor stage. There are these branches, including my own, which I studied aerospace engineering. There is ceramic engineering, textile engineering, mining and metallurgy, and also the new branches, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, cryptography, blockchain, and the other things. Now, at the undergraduate level, why are the core branches still called the core branches? Because it's easy for somebody to get a very good foundational base in engineering and then move on to the further specialization. If you take something like computer science right at your undergrad stage, there is no way you can move into a field like mechanical engineering. While the movement from mechanical engineering to a specialization like computer science is still possible. That's the big difference. The second thing that you need to consider before applying to a college for a very specialized, or let's say new age branch, is whether the college has enough facilities to provide you excellent education in that field. For example, if you consider aerospace engineering, make sure that the campus has wind tunnels, has mock-up aircrafts, has enough facilities to provide you with the basic grounding of aerospace engineering. There is no point in engineering in knowing just the theory. But beyond labs and demonstrations that are possible, the greatest asset for any engineering institution are the faculty members. Now, when we started Trinity College of Engineering, our chairman, Dr. Thomas Alexander, shared the vision that we should run an engineering college like a medical college. What does this mean? Both are professional degrees, which means you can work unsupervised at the end of 4 years or 5 years once you get the degree. But to run an engineering college like a medical college, we know that a very good medical college has practicing doctors who are training the next generation. They are doing diagnosis, they are doing surgery, they are meeting real patients, they are reading the latest research, they are immediately using the latest technology to help patients get better, to treat diseases. Similarly, when you pick an engineering college, make sure that the faculty members are people who are practicing engineers first, and then they are professors who are training the next generation, which means look for colleges which has active government and private projects going on, which have very good alignment with the industry, which have cutting edge research going on, or the faculty are consultants for the government and the private industries. So effectively, you will behave like an apprentice who learns real engineering that is going on. Another thing to be kept in mind is that in the real world, no engineer works alone. All the branches collaborate with each other in any engineering project. So it's only in colleges that there are skirmishes between this branch is better than that branch and this branch versus that branch and so on. In any good engineering project that you get into, a mechanical engineering graduate will work with a civil engineering graduate, or electrical engineer will work with a chemical engineer, and so on. So please be aware that once in the real world, especially in our world where everything is being permeated by electronics and IoT and so on, all the branches will eventually work together. So look for a foundational degree that will give you basic engineering skills, which are to analyze a problem, to break it down into its subparts and start solving it and innovating it. This brings us to the next most important step. Our country, India, currently has people in higher education only less than 30%. And if you consider engineering alone, you will understand how privileged you are, even in India, to get an engineering education. Though people may say there are lakhs and lakhs of engineers coming out, considering the population of this country, that is still a minuscule privileged population. So as an engineer, you have the responsibility not just to get a job, but try providing jobs to maximum people. Try improving the society. And for that, one of the routes is to think about starting up right from the college stage itself. That's what we will discuss next. Entrepreneurship and startup are two words that entered the popular vocabulary recently. Thanks to the excellent work that's being done by the Kerala Startup Mission, today Kerala has a flourishing startup ecosystem with around 2,000, 3,000 startups. Most of these are obviously in the engineering side. Here I am sitting in the Trivandrum Technolodge, which is a business incubator that is housed inside Trinity. Now, when you are at an engineering college, which is backed by an engineering company, like Al-Adrak in the case of Trinity, not only do you have some kind of job security that then you are very close to an industry that can recruit you, but you will also gain further insights into what's going on real time in the industry. At Trinity, we have these incubator spaces and also the Kerala Startup Mission Guided Innovation and Entrepreneurship Cell, the IEDC, where our student and faculty startups operate. Now, as mentioned earlier, it's important to have faculty who are practicing engineers. We encourage our faculty to set up their own companies like Kinesis and Letmac, and recently started NCleaners, which provides sanitized, professionally cleaned environments for workplaces after the COVID crisis. Now, when you are in a campus where there is entrepreneurship and startup, you will understand that the real world and engineering industry needs more skills than just answering question papers. It's important to write your exams well and get your degree with a very good CGPA, but equally important is to recognize that how real world projects get done involves a lot more other skill sets as well. Now, people might consider whether there is a big difference and a risk involved when trying to start up on your own. Consider this basic statistic. If you are looking for a government job and it's advertised for 10 vacancies, clearly around 1 lakh people or 100,000 people will apply. So your chances of success are 10 out of 100,000. From worldwide statistics, we know that 95% of the startups might fail. Still, the chance of success there is 5%, which is orders of magnitude higher than 10 out of 100,000. So which is more riskier? Trying to pursue an exam which you may or may not qualify and get a job, or starting on your own right at the college level, so that from day one, you are gaining invaluable skills which will make you an excellent recruit for any engineering company, even if your startup idea fails. So this is the basic philosophy with which you can approach entrepreneurship. And like I mentioned before, we in higher education in India have a moral responsibility to be more job providers rather than job seekers. Hope you received a comprehensive and effective introduction to engineering. Now let's come back to the joke that was discussed in the beginning about engineers not getting enough salary compared to semi-skilled, unskilled laborers. Now the truth is, for an engineer right out of BTech, it's just the beginning of a career graph as compared to somebody else. They can go on to pursue higher degrees, take a management degree, run their own startup, and then sky is the limit. So it's just the beginning of a big, long career graph in which they can go higher and higher, farther and farther. So there is no fairness in the comparison of what somebody starts off as their salary as compared to somebody else. Second issue that we needed to address was the unemployability of BTech graduates. Here it's a deeper question of the education system. There is a difference between knowing something and actually being able to do something with it or using it on a regular basis. Now I'm sure everyone watching this video knows English, obviously, because it's an English video. But then how many are able to use English in a daily fashion? Be very fluent with it, use it for all the purposes. Now that's the difference in language. The same goes for calculus. You may know calculus, but do you use it? Are you able to use it in daily life to solve problems, to create plans, and so on? So that's the same difference. You may know a lot of engineering. If you pursued it in a campus where there is no hands-on application, no innovation, you are not exposed to the industry and the real uses of the theory that you are learning. But once you are in a campus where you actually do engineering, and engineering is doing, it's modeling and changing the world. And if you are familiar with it, then there is no question of unemployability. 100% you will be placed as soon as you leave the campus, or even while you're pursuing your meaningful final year their project. Now let's think about the third issue, about people pursuing other degrees. That's fine if you're passionate about it, if you have interest in the field, that's great. But do keep in mind that for higher education, most of the reputed universities in the world, a 4-year undergraduate degree is preferred. And in India also, at the end of a 3-year bachelor, unless you do another 3 years of masters, you're not considered great for employment in any of those particular fields. Consider medical education, which is expensive, and only the truly passionate and the really good go on to make their mark. But if you are really interested in serving the needy and the sick, then you have the option of pursuing healthcare electronics and going back into the same industry related to healthcare management. So I hope through this video, you have received a fairly good introduction to the scope, potential, and excitement of engineering. Please do join us into the world of engineering so that we can model, plan, and change the world and leave our marks. Thank you for listening.